What's happening, everyone? I'm Graham INSCOE, and today on DnD Backstories, we're going to be taking a look at the grizzled young veteran, Sergeant Edmund Litswift, retired. But Graham, human fighter is boring. Shut up. You're boring. Sergeant Litswift, to me, is the perfect example of how a character that's simple or basic at a first glance can add a lot of depth and substance to the experience of all players at the table, and provide a perspective of the world often missing in tabletop games. So, rather than present to you Sir Leading Role, the dashingly handsome champion of the realm, we present to you the most average man in the world. A fighter with a bum leg and an early pension, an average-looking man in plain armor, Sergeant Edmund Litswift shines brightest in a party filled with colorful characters and big personalities. And so many PCs are just that. The grumpy voice of grounded perspective and reason is often exactly what's needed to drive home the stakes of a major quest, deflate the heads of arrogant party members and NPCs alike, and to remind the party of what they're capable of. After all, if the stubborn human continues to face down the dragon, grumbling about how they're supposed to be retired, what self-respecting dwarven warrior could justify fleeing to safety? Conversely, your party's 250-year-old elven mage might need to be brought back down to earth and reminded of just how screwed up the day-to-day life of an adventurer is. And a regular dude in the corner, cursing up a storm as he frantically beats back a carnivorous vine, is a very efficient way of reminding a detached demigod that this kind of thing isn't supposed to be normal. Humans in fantasy can often seem as though they're a part of the world by a fluke, or exist strictly at the whim of some higher power compared to the supernatural humanoids and monstrosities that share their worlds. Sergeant Litswift is designed to defy that, to exemplify the best reason for why humanity consistently carves out its place across planes and galaxies. Because for better or for worse, humans just don't know when to friggin' quit. So, now that we've established why humans don't have to be boring, let's get into the mechanics of Edmund, and why the fighter class isn't boring either. Sergeant Litswift is built to absorb punishment and to just keep going. To get into his enemies' faces and either prevent them from reaching his fellow party members or to make them regret not focusing him down first. Strength for his damage output and Constitution for his survivability are his two highest priority stats. But since his whole shtick revolves around his refusal to stop fighting, we're going to prioritize health over damage somewhat in these early levels. And as variant humans gain a free feat, our man Edmund is starting the game with the tough feat, giving him extra HP every time he levels up. His other ability scores, frankly, aren't going to impact him too much. We made Dexterity his tertiary stat for a +1 to initiative, but Edmund was built with heavy armor in mind, so his dex has no bearing on his armor class. As to his mental scores, we know he's too dumb to quit, but smart enough to track down city watch targets, and we know he's grumpy as hell. So after distributing our remaining points, he's at a flat 0 for intelligence and a -1 to charisma. The city watch background comes with proficiency in athletics and insight, and to best round out a PC who does not have a lot of valuable skill proficiencies, we opted to give him proficiency in perception and intimidation, giving him at least one social skill with a positive modifier. Variant human grants one final skill proficiency of our choice, and we're going with investigation, reflecting yet another semi-surprising example of almost expertise in Sergeant Litswift's arsenal as a watchman turned adventurer. At level 1, Edmund is a pretty basic dude. He's tough, he's sitting at 16 AC in a chainmail shirt, he's armed with a halberd, giving him a 10-foot melee range. He doesn't have many bells and whistles beyond attack yet, but the great weapon fighting style reduces his chances for low damage rolls with his halberd, and Second Wind gives him the ability to heal back some damage once per short rest. At level 2, Edmund becomes the proud owner of one of the absolute strongest class features in the game, Action Surge. It's really a very simple ability. Once per short rest, just break the game's action economy and perform a second action on your turn. Need to put on a burst of speed to catch a fleeing enemy? Action Surge, so you can dash and still get an attack or two off. You're down to your last hit points, but so is the enemy? Action Surge, double up on attack actions. Torn between pouring a potion down your ally's throat or attempting to shove aside the giant boulder that has them trapped? Porque no los dos? Action Surge! It's stupidly useful in most any situation, and it only increases in value as Edmund accumulates more attacks and more things to do with them. Next, at level 3, Edmund picks up the Battlemaster subclass and finally gets to start doing some of the cool shit he used to dream about doing. At its core, Battlemaster is designed around granting maneuvers to a fighter, which are used mostly to augment their attacks and run off of the unique resource, superiority dice. We start off with 3 maneuvers and 4 D8 superiority dice, and while there are maneuvers for all sorts of different combat effects, Edmund wants to focus primarily on locking down enemies and interfering with their ability to harm his allies. Trip Attack allows the Sergeant to force enemies to fall prone, a condition which not only grants advantage on melee attacks against the prone target, but also allows Edmund to knock flying enemies out of the sky with his crossbow, provided they don't possess a hover speed and aren't too huge to trip. Next up is Maneuvering Attack, which lets Edmund help his allies reposition themselves safely while he himself takes a swing at an enemy. Finally, Commander's Strike allows Sergeant Litswift to forgo one of his own attacks in order to grant an ally a single attack outside of their regular turn. On the surface, this may seem a little strange, since Edmund's default strategy is often just attacking with various effects tacked on. But if you have a rogue or a paladin in your party, an extra attempt at sneak attack or divine smite can change the course of even the most grueling of combats. Level 4 brings Edmund his first of many ability score increases, and we're using it to pick up the Sentinel feat. For now, the main draw of Sentinel is that when Edmund hits an enemy with an opportunity attack, a reaction taken when an enemy leaves his melee range, he drops that enemy's speed to 0 for the remainder of this turn, effectively locking them into place. There will be more to do with Sentinel once we pick up an additional feat, but before we get there, at 5th level, Sergeant Litswift picks up his first extra attack. We say first because, as the most martial-y of all marshals, fighters gain an extra attack at levels 11 and 17. Now, that additional feat. At level 6, fighters get yet another ASI, and Edmund is opting to take the Polearm Master feat. Polearm Master does 2 things for our grizzled fighter. When he attacks with his halberd, he can now use his bonus action to make an additional, albeit weaker, attack with the butt of the weapon. The second new trick up his sleeve is the kicker, though, because now Edmund can make opportunity attacks against creatures entering his 10-foot melee range, not just leaving it, and it explicitly stacks up with Sentinel's lockdown ability. This gives Edmund even more opportunities to stop enemies from positioning themselves properly, and in a game where hard crowd control is pretty limited for non-magic users, that extra chance can be invaluable. Level 7 is a mixed bag. Edmund gets to pick up a 5th superiority die and the bait and switch and riposte maneuvers, which is cool. Bait and switch allows you to swap places with an adjacent ally. Riposte allows you to use your reaction to attack an enemy that missed you with a melee attack. He also picks up the Know Your Enemy feature here, which is substantially less cool. This feature amounts to spending a minute closely studying an opponent to find out how you match up with them in a martial dick measuring contest. If you can find a good use for this feature, well done, I guess. Hopefully your DM is kind and offers you information from this feature for free when you have a social interaction with a given character. Could probably be fun if you wanted to gauge your chances in a drinking contest, Constitution versus Constitution. Anyway, level 8 is another ASI, and this time we're keeping it simple. +2 to strength, to boost Edmund's attacks a bit and increase the DC on his maneuvers. Although if you really want to start racking damage up, consider taking the Great Weapon Master feat instead of the ASI. At level 9, fighters pick up Indomitable, allowing them to reroll a saving throw once per day. Players may be tempted to use this feature to reroll intelligence or charisma saving throws, but it may well be worth saving for a saving throw you have a better chance at succeeding at, if you think there's a chance you'll be making strength or constitution saves before your next long rest. And finally, for our purposes at least, at level 10, improved combat superiority bumps our D8 superiority dice up to D10s. Edmund also grabs another 2 maneuvers. Commanding Presence was chosen so that if shit truly hits the fan and Edmund is required to make an important charisma check, he has a decent chance of success by adding a superiority die to it. Menacing Attack gives Edmund a chance to inflict the frightened condition on an enemy, and it forces a wisdom saving throw as opposed to the Trip Attack's dex save, giving him yet another crowd control option in his toolbox. So, Sergeant Edmund Litswift, retired. He's irritable, he's deadpan, and he's too old for this shit. But when the party's backs are against the wall, no one is more likely to hold the line and keep everyone trudging forward to glory, to honor, and to a good brandy waiting next to a plush armchair. Something simple and subtle, with a surprising depth and complexity of flavor once you know how to appreciate it properly. We sincerely hope this video helped you understand some of the theory behind the Good Sergeant's build and how to get the most out of playing him. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz for more ready-to-play characters and breakdowns, And get at me in the comments about why Sentinel, Great Weapon Master, and Polearm Master is too strong a combo, at or past a level where wizards start casting Fireball and Fly, and Slow, and Hypnotic Pattern, and Counterspell, and Fear, and thanks for watching! If you'd like to support our channel and gain access to some other fun D&D Backstory content, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description. To find all of our other characters and how-to videos, head over to the channel by clicking D&D Backstory below.